One of my favorite things that has come out recently are the rise of handheld PCs. Being able to play games at 120 hertz just in the middle of nowhere has been incredible. So today we're going to be talking about the ASUS ROG Ally X. In this video, we're going to break it down into what I was looking for in a handheld PC, why I landed on the Ally X, and my experience with it in the first 90 days of owning it. Now, before I do anything else, this is not sponsored. I purchased this with my own money. So let's first talk about why I was looking at a handheld PC and what I was really trying to get into. So in my setup, I was really looking for a couple of things. I was looking for a setup that was compact, so when I sat in an airplane seat or I was in the front seat of a car or on a bus, I was able to get a good gaming session in. It didn't feel like I was taking out a full setup and really getting into it. The other thing is I wanted something that was powerful enough to deliver the performance on some of the titles that I was interested in. For example, old titles that have been sitting on my Steam wish list for 10 plus years, namely like Sleeping Dogs and more recently Stray. I also wanted to have a decent built-in screen. I wanted something that could have 120 hertz, that looked clean, that was bright, that was able to play and just look good no matter where I took it. I wanted to have the flexibility and freedom to be able to choose to play AAA titles like Call of Duty or Valorant or games that required anti-cheat. So whether that had to be through a dual boot or natively through the system, that was something I was looking for. So before we talk about the Ally X, I kind of wanted to walk you through my thought process of the things that I was looking at and the other devices, because if you're watching this video for this long, it must mean that you've definitely interested in the Ally X, and for it being a big luxury purchase, I typically have to watch like tons of YouTube videos for me to be even able to decide if I want to even purchase it, and then making sure that it was the right purchase. So hopefully this video can give you some clarity and give you some other ideas of other pieces of gear to check out if you're not totally convinced after this video. So a couple of things that didn't really make the cut for me was the biggest number one overall competitor was the Steam Deck. I was actually looking at the Steam Deck prior because for me, most of my PC games that I play come through Steam. And with the Steam Deck, it has a great OS, great battery life, really easy to use, amazing customer service from Valve, and overall, I have not heard a terrible complaint about the Steam Deck. For me, the only reason I didn't go with it was that flexibility and freedom of being able to play AAA titles like Valorant or Call of Duty because of the lack of anti-cheat and being locked into the Steam library overall. Now, I was willing to sacrifice that if I felt that the games that I necessarily played on Steam would be the majority of the games I played on this handheld. However, for me, the more I kept thinking about it, the more I wanted to be able to take this on the go with a portable monitor, a foldable keyboard, a small mouse, and still be able to play Valorant in a hotel room or at my family's house when I travel down for a road trip or something like that. For me, that was how can I get the most use out of this item in the near future and for years to come. And with the Steam Deck, it felt more like, okay, this is just a solo console, similar to a PlayStation or a Nintendo Switch. It was built in, really well designed in a proprietary ecosystem, and didn't give me that flexibility that, what PC gamers really do love. At the core of it is not being locked into one game developer's OS and being able to choose between Epic titles, Battle.net, Steam, Riot, whatever company you want to spend your time with, you're able to have that freedom and choose. The next one was the Legion Go. Similar to the ROG Ally X, it's a Windows handheld. It felt way too gimmicky and a little bit large. With the roughly 8.8 inch screen and everything else, it felt like I was taking a full PC with me. Now, don't get me wrong, my ideal setup for this ROG Ally X is having a full PC setup on the go, but being able to not take that was also the option I wanted to have. And with the Legion Go, the battery life and the screen kind of really turned me off about it. And the reviews were always kind of a mixed bag when it first came out and when it was hitting the review cycle with all the other tech YouTubers. The last piece of tech that made the consideration was the ROG Flow Z13. For me, this laptop looks incredible. You know, it can be a tablet. It already comes with a keyboard and a mouse. So all I would have to bring is just a set of IEMs and a mouse, and I would be able to play games I would normally want to play on a computer. It felt like it was competing for space in my bag where my MacBook was, where, you know, I could use it to edit videos, I could use it to edit photos, I could also, you know, check emails, do all this productivity stuff, and then also game on it as well. And the price tag itself compared to the Ally X, it's almost 3 times as much, sitting at $2,100. It's not the most competitive when it comes to price. And it felt way more like a laptop competitor than, you know, an additional piece in my gaming arsenal. So why did I eventually choose the ROG Ally X? First off, this checked a lot of the boxes that I had for a handheld PC, gaming device, whatever. This thing is very portable. I'm able to just slip it in my bag. We're able to put it in my side bag. Being able to, you know, slot enough space for this is amazing. The improved battery life over the original Ally means I get double the performance in terms of length of duration and when it comes to longer gaming sessions. But for me, battery life wasn't a big thing. I necessarily only game on this for an hour to 2 hours depending on the situation I'm in. So if I'm in a plane, I'm not taking super long flights. So for me, the battery life on the Ally X is just as good as I need it to be, because if I'm playing for 3+ hours, I'll be close to an outlet and I'll be able to charge it, and the charging cable is long enough where I'm not necessarily thinking, okay, do I have to pause my gaming session and let this thing charge? No, I'm usually able to plug this and still lay in the bed and play. In the Ally X, the AMD Ryzen Z1 Extreme processor, along with 24 gigabytes of memory, allows for me to play modern titles as well as some older titles with 0 issues. Playing Sleeping Dogs with like 80 to 90 FPS and playing, you know, RPGs like Hades at 120. Being able to hit that 120 threshold is just enough for me. And as well, I think I'm playing PC games on the go. I know I'm sacrificing performance. I'm not sitting here with my full setup. I'm just trying to enjoy my time playing it. And the tech within the ROG Ally X has allowed me to reach the performance that is enough for me to enjoy the game without noticing issues like frame skipping or, you know, lag. I think, you know, one of the biggest cons for a lot of people was Windows 11 being on this, where Windows is not made for a handheld PC environment and it has a lot of bugs and issues. I've experienced a lot of these bugs and issues while having this, but for me, I'm compartmentalized it in my head as I'm sacrificing, you know, the ease of use and the proprietary softwares to be able to have the freedom to choose AAA titles and games with anti-cheat in the future and being able to play a variety of titles. And that's where I think the ROG Ally X gives you. It gives you that freedom of choice that you have when you first get into PC gaming. You're not locked into a proprietary software that forces you to choose or limits the amount of games that you can play at all. And that's the thing I talked about with the Steam Deck, and a little bit with like, why didn't I get a PlayStation Portable? I mean, why would I get that? I also think the reason I opted for the Ally X over the Ally was because of the better performance when it came to cooling. This thing does run hot, and the fans come on when you do have it on power mode and you're charging it, and you can hear them. It's not the most silent thing ever. You can definitely hear the fans. They're definitely audible. Let me show you a sound test right now. But like, ask yourself this question. Are you buying a PC handheld to be silent and on the go, or when you're trying to push it, you're going to hear the fans? Like, this isn't going to give you complete silent performance. And I knew that from the get-go. So it wasn't like a big con for me when, you know, I was pushing it. I usually either just turn up the volume or I put in my noise canceling headphones. Obviously, I'm not doing this in public and annoying other people, but doing this in like, you know, an enclosed area, or at least where I'm away from other individuals as not to annoy them with the sound, I think is a very big key I try and make, especially when you travel with a device like this. I don't think you want to like impede other people's enjoyment of their travel with your enjoyment. Let's talk a little bit about Armory Crate. I think this is one of the mixed bag issues about the ASUS ROG Ally X. The other mixed issue is saying the full name every single time. It is a very, like, ASUS just has crazy naming for everything they have. Like, Armory Crate is a great try. It's no Steam OS from all the videos I've seen of every single Steam Deck. I think what's great about it is being able to switch settings on the go. Your mid-gaming session, you want to turn the brightness down. Having that quick access allows it to feel more console-like. I think there's a very big distinction between having a PC you can hold and having a handheld PC. A handheld PC to me is more console-like, and that's where Armory Crate comes in. It allows you to see your game titles, be able to click on them, immediately launch them without having to go through Windows OS, and kind of, you know, sometimes that itself is a mixed bag. I do love being able to customize the swipe over menu, being able to change the power consumption I want. If I want a longer on-the-go gaming session, I can change the mode to silent, or if I want a little bit more performance, I can, you know, sacrifice battery life and go that route, as well as being able to change the LEDs and all the other customization abilities that Armory Crate gives you. The full menu for Armory Crate is a little bit hit or miss. I think it's a little bit tough to navigate when you haven't been in the system for that long and you don't know where the things you need are. I think it does take a slight learning curve. For me, I consider myself a gamer, but this is not my full-time job. I am a part-time tech reviewer, full-time creative. So for me, like, sometimes when I want to tinker, it's at the sacrifice of the length of time I'm actually going to be spending gaming. So I'm okay with that because I always love seeing how things work. I love creating things, and I love like adjusting settings. At the same time, if that's not for you, I would think twice about purchasing this, because I think there are other consoles like the Steam Deck that ultimately get it right and allow you for that, you know, ease of use to jump right in. The other cool thing that Armory Crate provides is to have a custom button map for each game to optimize the controller hardware built into the Ally X. Talking about the actual hardware of the Ally X, I think the buttons are stiff. When you're playing games like Hades, which is definitely a button mashing game for me, it's not the greatest. You can kind of see the back buttons here. You have to be a little bit more intentional of actually touching them, which is great, but at the same time, they're a little bit far out of reach when you're holding it. I think the joysticks are amazing. I like a concave joystick, and I've never had a problem with them. I think the response time is amazing. Having the fans on the top of the handheld, I think is amazing. The PC itself doesn't get hot where you hold it, but it gets hot in other places, and the fan area definitely gets hot. They changed where the micro SD card slot is. I currently don't use a micro SD card, but being able to slot in and add an additional, 1 terabyte even of storage that way is incredible for people who have large game libraries or want to have a lot of titles downloaded on their Ally X. So I bought the 1 terabyte model. What I like about this is you can take it apart and actually, expand the storage. And that's pretty similar across all of these handheld PCs, which I think is just a great standard to have, because a lot of people have different needs in terms of how much of their libraries they want on the go and how much they're willing to play. And for me, I think 1 terabyte's enough. The D-pad is nice. I mean, the speakers are all right. The speakers on this are not giving you the best sound. So last and finally, I think the display I don't think it's the best display I've ever seen. The colors on it are, in my opinion, really good. I love a good display, don't get me wrong, but I think there's a level of investment that you get with a display where when you have a really bad display, you notice it. But once you hit to that threshold of having a great display, the small minutes between each one don't really change. And I think we've gotten to the place in technology where the return on investment on displays is already there. So having a 1080p screen on this, games look amazing. I will say, in direct sunlight with brightness fully there, when I was gaming on this, when I took it camping this last week, it wasn't the greatest. You definitely have to be more in shade or diffused lighting for it to really stand out. But the great thing about having a portable handheld is being able to move around with it. So if I was just in a bad lighting spot, just solve it by moving somewhere else, like laying on my back and holding the screen above my head. Like, I don't think it's a big deal. For me, the reason we loved Game Boys and DSs wasn't because the games were the best games that had ever come out. It was because the amount of times we were able to play them in those spurts of downtime that we had, and having your DS on you and being able to play Pokemon for 30 minutes to an hour, or even like 4 hours plus while you're on a road trip or while you're sitting waiting in the airport. Those are where you're making the connections with the game, and those for me made that nostalgic case for why I should get the ROG Ally X. But I think it's huge because, you know, I've made more of a connection with Hades because I don't feel like I have to get into a full setup, sit down at this chair, put on the over-ear headphones, set up the keyboard, set up the mouse, and do all the 9 yards just to be able to play it, where I can easily just pick up the Ally X and jump right into it. I think going into my final thoughts about the Ally X, I think a lot of the problems that people point out and a lot of the tech issues, like the tinkering, the lack of ease of use, the smaller button size, Armory crate being a hit or miss, like all these things, you can live with them. And that's just me like somehow justifying it to myself of why I should buy this. But at the same time, I think after having it for this long, like I am sacrificing a lot of things to not have the most optimal gaming setup so I can game in places I normally wouldn't have my setup. And I think that's the most important thing to think about when you're looking at a PC handheld is what are those things that you're willing to sacrifice? What are those things you're willing to compromise on? And that will kind of lead you in the right direction. With that being said, kind of my final thoughts on everything is this right for you? Who do I think the ROG Ally X is for? I think the Ally X is people who are frequent, short duration travelers, people who have longer commutes on the train, people who fly often domestically, and I think people who, you know, want to even just game in bed for a little bit before they go to sleep. Those are cases where the Ally X fits perfectly into that system. The battery life is long enough for you to satisfy your gaming cravings. You're able to push it in performance, and then you're able to put it down. I think the biggest thing that I mentioned before is people who want access to those games that have anti-cheat software, so like Call of Duty, Valorant, and other AAA titles that can't run on a Linux-based system like SteamOS, I think are perfect. Having Windows level control allows you to do a lot of things with the Ally X that you couldn't do on the Steam Deck. Being able to use it as a portable PC when you attach it to a monitor, attach a keyboard, attach a mouse, and everything else, and being able to download, like you could download Adobe Cloud on this and edit a video. I've seen people do it and use it as their computer for a month. But having that level of flexibility with Windows and sacrificing that ease of use, I think is one of those big hurdles that you have to be willing to tackle and be willing to overcome if you really want to get the Ally X. Who I don't think the Ally X is for is people who just want things to work. Like, tech is supposed to make our lives easier. It's supposed to make our lives more enjoyable. The pieces and items and devices that we buy are meant to enhance our lives and not hinder them in any way. So if you want something that just works, that just immediately plugs and plays, I don't think this is it. I think it requires a little bit of tinkering, and not a lot of people are like that. Some people just want something to work, and that's why Mac has had such an incredible rise. For its immediate ease of use and understanding, Mac has always just been really good. So overall, hopefully this video helps you in deciding whether or not the Ally X is perfect for you, or maybe it's a pass. Tech reviewing is still a part-time passion of mine as a creative, so I haven't been able to spend the most time with it, but I wanted to give you a more personable and a more experience-driven and realm of thought review rather than a full tech spec review of the actual device. I really haven't had as much time as I wanted with the Ally X before doing this review, but I wanted to give you guys kind of a look into why a device like this would fit in my life as a creative, as a traveling creative as well. before I go, thank you guys so much for the love on the last video about my setup. It's been incredible. I never expected it to get above like 500 views, to be honest. So thank you guys for all the love for that. It really means the world to me. It made me really want to put this video out as quick as I can for you guys and get back to that routine of YouTube. So if you like this video or you liked any of the other videos I've done, please hit the subscribe button. You can ring the notification bell if you want. And if you've got any Ally X specific questions that you want me to answer, I would happily try and test them out on my own time and get back to you in the comments. So just let me know and I'll try to reply to as many as I can. Thank you guys so much for the support. It means the world to me and it's really made this whole adventure really fun. So I'll catch you in the next video. Till then, peace.